Have you ever said something like, I would sell my soul for a library like that? Or, what would I give to have aisles and aisles of fabric at my disposal? Well, Addie LaRue just found the answer to that question. Hello, I'm Allie, the literary sewist. Here in my crafting castle, I create projects inspired by the books I review. Go steal your favorite snack, sit back, relax, and let me tell you why The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue inspired a custom journal cover sewing project. Oh, and while you're here, be sure to subscribe to my channel for future installments of my bookish sewing goodness. Addie LaRue is a young woman growing up in 17th century France, a rural part of France where it's a very small town, everybody knows everybody kind of place. On the eve of her arranged marriage, she is terrified to be trapped in this small town for the rest of her life and never have experienced anything, never gone anywhere, done nothing worldly with her life. After making a deal with one of the old gods, Adeline finds herself with an immortal life. The catch, though, is that no one remembers her. Not her family, not her friends, anybody in the town that she grew up in. She's just been erased from their memories and doesn't exist to them. She also discovers that part of her immortal life, she is no longer remembered by anybody else either. Once they meet her and then leave her presence, they forget all about her. So she lives a very lonely life. She can't get a job anywhere to earn money, to have a home. And worst of all, she can't even say her own name. She can't write her own name. Her name no longer exists to her. Henry Strauss is a young man who lives in New York City, and he runs a used bookstore with a live-in cat named Book. Henry is the youngest member of his family, and he's never really quite fit in with any of them. They all have these big goals and aspirations, and Henry tries to have those things, but he doesn't. In fact, his graduate school advisor tells him he better drop out before he flunks out. So Henry is left with a big gaping hole in his life, not knowing where to go, what to do next. So his whole world is just kind of up in the air and taking things day by day. Addie and Henry's worlds collide when Addie goes to his bookshop and attempts to steal a Greek copy of the Odyssey. Henry stops her, realizes what she's stealing, and was like, okay, this is ridiculous, take the book. From there, a love story blooms, and you can tell that everything Addie has done in her long life has led up to this moment. Things that I liked about this book. There's a lot, but I'll narrow it down for you. The writing style is done in a lyrical way that took me along for the ride. The book goes back and forth with flashbacks, back to Adeline's early life in France and to her current situation in modern New York. It blends the two together so you see a full spectrum of how she gets from point A to point Z. Eventually, we do get Henry's story as well. The stories were told in such a seamless way that they were just stitched together flawlessly. I really enjoyed the way that V.E. Schwab combined their stories and put them together. This is such a unique and fresh take on what being immortal is. Imagine having to reinsert yourself every day, having to apply for a job every day, make new friends every day, figure out how you're going to get food. So many times, stories with immortals, the immortals are rich. They have money handed to them, or there's food available, or they're a vampire and they get their food from humans and there's plenty of them. Those are the common things you see when a story about immortals takes place. Addie is literally left with nothing. Just her physical body, the clothing that she has on her at the time that she makes the deal. That's it. Somehow Addie manages to rise above that and find a way to make the world work for her, to figure out little nuances of people, to have some small relationships with people even though they're not long-lasting. But she doesn't do any of that without a lot of struggle too. It takes her a really long time to figure things out. I can't stop thinking about this book. Everything in it had such an emotional impact on me and how I felt, and it just resonated with me so much. Watching Addie discover who she was so organic and so earnest that she felt completely real to me. She made the world her own on her own terms, even though she was bound to the darkness and had this deal hanging over her head. And then Henry, who was also struggling to find his place in the world, two different people from two different places in time coming together. Oh, so much. It still gives me chills. And while we still have Luce, the darkness, here at play, he is such the quintessential villain who is charming and devious, and you love to hate him, and you hate to love him. Things that I didn't like about this book. There wasn't really anything that I didn't like. But I will agree with Daniel Green and his final thoughts on this. The last scene of the book wasn't completely necessary. It could have been left off the table. I understand why they did it, but for me, it was just kind of, oh, that was nice. But I was completely satisfied at the ending of the scene before that. So it's not really a complaint or didn't like, just if I could take it off the table, I would. So let's discuss. If Luce was here making a deal for your soul, what would it take? What would the terms be for you to give up your soul? What would you want in exchange? Let me know down in the comments below. Do you want an immortal life like Addie? Do you want $1 million? Do you want to never go hungry? So today's sewing project, of course, is inspired by Addie. It is going to be a custom faux leather cover for a journal. In the story, Henry begins to write Addie's story in one of his journals. And I felt there was no better time than to start writing my own story in a journal. I am going to go sew that up real quick, and I'll come back and show you what I made. Open crafting castle for business.
The sky outside is a static gray, a thin mist of rain blurring the buildings. It is the kind of day designed for wood fires, and mugs of tea, and well-loved books.
This self-drafted pattern works for any size journal or notebook. All you need to do is measure, draw a few lines, and sew 4 straight lines. Trim up the edges to make sure they are straight. Then slide the journal into the sleeve.
Power down, crafting castle.
The vexing thing about time is that it's never enough. Perhaps a decade too short, perhaps a moment, but a life always ends too soon.
And now, 3 reasons that you should read The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. This is a Faustian tale where Hades and Persephone, Orpheus and Eurydice meet, but Persephone and Eurydice are 2 sides of the same coin. This story is going to break you. It is going to tear your heart out, throw it across the room, but you're not even going to be mad about it. The story of Addie LaRue is going to haunt you. In so many great ways, it lingers long after you've finished the last page. I very much loved this story. My overall rating for the book is 5 stars. I would give it 100 stars if I could. It was fantastic. It shot straight to the top of my favorite books list. I will probably reread it soon because I just couldn't get enough of it. It was such an incredible journey, and I really want more people to read it so that I can discuss it with them. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope I've inspired you to go out and pick up a copy of The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. I will leave a link in the description below so you can go pick up a copy quite easily and get started on the journey of Addie LaRue. If you like what I had to say about The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, please give this video a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to my channel for more bookish inspired goodness. See you next time.